A silk-clad titan watches a fashion show, but his mind is on a different kind of runway. He is counting his next acquisition. The world of luxury is not just about glitter and glamour. It is the stage for brutal corporate wars where empires are built and legacies are torn apart. These battles over legendary fashion houses are the real-life dramas that make television shows look tame. Behind every iconic handbag and perfume lies a story of high-stakes takeovers, ruthless strategies, and family dynasties fighting for survival. By the end of this, you will understand the hidden forces that decide which brands you love and which ones disappear forever. We will uncover how a secret raid on a century-old company sparked a legal firestorm, and why one of the most famous families in fashion took the drastic step of publishing its private financial secrets to the world. When you think of the ultimate symbol of luxury, what unseen war do you believe was fought to put it in your hands? For centuries, these were not global brands, but intimate family secrets. A master perfumer in Grasse, a leather artisan in Florence, a corset maker in Paris. Their value was not in sales figures, but in generations of quiet, obsessive craftsmanship. A single handbag could take 100 hours to create by hand. So how did these rarefied ateliers become the trillion-dollar prizes in a global corporate war? The answer lies in the ashes of the Second World War. A new era of peace and prosperity created a booming middle class with disposable income and a hunger for the good life. Suddenly, luxury was not just for royalty and old money. It was for anyone with ambition. This seismic shift did not go unnoticed. A new kind of empire saw the untapped potential. They realized that these small, family-run houses possessed something no amount of advertising could ever buy. They had heritage. They had a story. A name like Louis Vuitton or Gucci was not just a label. It was a century of legend, and that legend was a gold mine waiting to be industrialized. The first corporate raiders were not fashion people. They were financiers, builders, and visionaries who saw fragmented, inefficient businesses ripe for consolidation. They began to weave these individual threads of silk and satin into a vast, powerful tapestry. This was the birth of the luxury conglomerate. The most famous of these, of course, is LVMH, Moet Hennessy Louis Vuitton. The name itself is a map of its conquests, a fusion of champagne, cognac, and leather goods into a single financial weapon. Its great rival, Kering, followed a similar path, assembling a stable of legendary names. These were not mere companies. They were portfolios of desire. They created the very battlefield we see today, a landscape where a family's life work is just another asset on a balance sheet. But what happens when the family does not want to sell? The quiet family addle. You never stood a chance against a wolf in cashmere. Bernard Arnault did not simply enter the luxury world. He laid siege to it, armed with a single, devastating philosophy. He believed the ultimate luxury business was not about making beautiful things. It was about assembling a collection of the world's most desirable names. His own story began not in a Parisian fashion house, but in construction and real estate. He saw the chaotic landscape of post-war French luxury as a puzzle only he could solve. His first major move was a corporate masterstroke, a hostile takeover of the storied house of Christian Dior. This was not a friendly merger. It was a declaration of war on the old guard. With Dior as his beachhead, Arnault set his sights on an even grander prize. He orchestrated a secret and brutal battle to gain control of the newly formed LVMH, pitting the founding families of Moet and Hennessy against Louis Vuitton in a corporate civil war. From the ashes of that conflict, his empire was born. Arnault's strategy was ruthlessly simple. He sought only what he called star brands. These were names with a timeless legacy, a powerful story, and global recognition. He was not interested in fixing broken companies. He wanted to acquire legends and then deploy the immense power of his group to make them even more profitable. He would buy a family-run Italian leather goods company, for instance, and then plug it into LVMH's global distribution, marketing, and supply chain machine. The brand kept its soul, but its revenue multiplied 100-fold. This is how a portfolio of desire was built, one legendary name at a time: Bulgari, Tiffany, Sephora, Dom Perignon. Each acquisition was a strategic piece, making the overall structure more unassailable. But what happens when the wolf meets a lion? What occurs when a family decides their legacy is not for sale at any price? While Bernard Arnault was building his fortress of brands, another kingdom was rising to challenge his reign. This rival empire was not born from construction, but from timber. The Pinault family built its fortune in the lumber trade, a world away from the glittering salons of Paris. But the founder's son, François-Henri Pinault, would inherit a company poised for a radical transformation. He saw the same potential in luxury that Arnault did, but he envisioned a fundamentally different way to rule. His company, originally called PPR, would eventually become known as Kering. Where LVMH sought to build an unassailable portfolio, Kering's strategy was more like cultivating a garden of brilliant and sometimes volatile talents. Their focus was not just on acquiring brands, but on revitalizing them by handing over the creative keys to visionary designers. This philosophy was put to the test with one of their most famous and turbulent acquisitions, the House of Gucci. In the 1990s, Gucci was a faded glory, a brand that had lost its way. Kering, under Pinault's leadership, made a daring bet. They installed a relatively unknown designer named Tom Ford as creative director. The result was a cultural earthquake. Ford's sensual, razor-sharp aesthetic did not just redesign the clothes. It resurrected the entire soul of Gucci, turning it into one of the most profitable and influential brands on earth. This victory proved Kering's core belief that a brand's ultimate value lies in the power of its creative voice. They repeated this success with Yves Saint Laurent, another sleeping giant awakened by the right designer. This created a clear battlefield. On one side stood LVMH, a master of operational efficiency and financial scale. On the other stood Kering, the patron of creative genius. Their contrasting philosophies made a direct collision inevitable. The question was no longer if they would fight, but which legendary house would become the prize. The corporate Cold War between these two giants finally ignited over a house in crisis. Gucci was a wounded lion, and its weakness drew the predators in. The first move came from Bernard Arnault and LVMH. He began quietly buying up Gucci shares, a silent, stealthy accumulation meant to give him control before anyone even realized a battle had begun. By early 1999, he had acquired a stake of over 34%, effectively making him the largest single shareholder. He expected a welcome. Instead, he found a fortress. Gucci's chief executive, Domenico De Sole, and its star designer, Tom Ford, understood that an LVMH takeover would mean their creative revolution would be absorbed, dismantled, and ultimately extinguished. They were not going to surrender their resurrected brand without a fight. Their defense was a masterclass in corporate warfare. They deployed a strategy known as a poison pill. This was not a physical toxin, but a financial one. Gucci issued a massive number of new shares to its own employees, a move designed to instantly and drastically dilute the value of LVMH's stake. It was like adding so much water to a pot of soup that the first chef's spoonful becomes meaningless. Arnault was enraged. He had been outmaneuvered. He immediately filed a lawsuit, and the battle spilled from the boardroom into the courtroom. The legal drama was intense, with accusations of bad faith and secret plots flying back and forth. But while Arnault was tied up in legal proceedings, Gucci went searching for a savior. They needed a white knight, a friendly rival powerful enough to shield them from the wolf. They found their champion in François-Henri Pinault. This was the perfect opportunity for Pinault to strike a blow against his greatest competitor and acquire a crown jewel for his own empire. In a stunning reversal, Pinault's company, PPR, swooped in to buy a large block of the newly issued Gucci shares, effectively rescuing the company from Arnault's grasp. The feud escalated into an all-out bidding war, a frantic and public auction that captivated the financial world. For months, the two titans volleyed multi-billion-dollar offers back and forth, each trying to outbid the other for control of Gucci. In the end, PPR prevailed, paying a staggering $3 billion to take full ownership. It was a humiliating and costly defeat for Bernard Arnault. But this was more than just a lost acquisition. This first great war set the rules for every conflict that would follow. It proved that even the most powerful conglomerate could be stopped if a target fought back with enough cleverness and courage. It cemented the rivalry between LVMH and Kering as the defining story of modern luxury. And it left one burning question on every other family-owned brand's mind. If Gucci could win, could they? The Gucci War taught Bernard Arnault a crucial lesson. A hostile takeover was a messy, public, and expensive gamble. For his next great conquest, he would choose a different path, one of charm and mutual benefit, targeting a crown jewel that seemed an impossible dream for any outsider. That jewel was Bulgari, the legendary Roman jeweler. For over a century, the Bulgari family had fiercely protected its independence, its name synonymous with a bold, colorful Italian glamour that stood apart from the more conservative French houses. To the world, it seemed untouchable, but Arnault saw what others did not, a brand with a heritage so potent it was practically myth, yet a business that lacked the global machine to truly capitalize on its own legend. His approach was a masterclass in seduction. This would not be a raid, it was a courtship. He spent years building a relationship with the Bulgari family, understanding their pride, their fears for their legacy, and their quiet ambitions for the brand's future. He did not just offer them money, he offered them a vision, a promise that under LVMH, the soul of Bulgari would not just be preserved, but would finally achieve its global destiny. The result was a record-shattering deal. In 2011, LVMH acquired Bulgari in a share swap valued at over $6 billion, the largest luxury acquisition in history at that time. It was a price that stunned the industry, but for Arnault, it was a calculated investment in a timeless narrative. The true test, however, began after the contracts were signed. How do you absorb a 130-year-old family empire without destroying the very magic you paid for? LVMH's integration was a delicate operation. They did not storm the gates and install new management. Instead, they kept key family members like Paolo and Nicola Bulgari in prominent roles as ambassadors and visionaries. They poured immense resources into the brand, not to change its identity, but to amplify it. They expanded its watchmaking capabilities and opened dazzling flagship stores across the globe, all while meticulously upholding the Bulgari aesthetic, its serpent motifs, and its magnificent colored gemstones. They took a brilliant regional star and plugged it into the LVMH universe, launching it into a new stratosphere of sales and influence. The Bulgari takeover became the new blueprint, the friendly acquisition where everyone seemed to win. The family secured their legacy and saw their life's work magnified. LVMH gained an uncontested leader in the high jewelry arena. But this elegant solution raised a haunting new question for every other independent family dynasty. If the ultimate prize for resisting is to be lavishly rewarded for surrendering, is true independence in the world of modern luxury nothing more than an illusion? But the elegant truce of the Bulgari deal was merely the calm before an even more shocking storm. Bernard Arnault's next target was not just another company. It was a national monument, a 2-century-old dynasty that represented the unassailable soul of French luxury itself, Hermès. For generations, the Hermès family had cultivated an aura of untouchable exclusivity, a world of hand-stitched Birkin bags and silk scarves where money alone could not buy you a seat at the table. They were the last great independent. And so, in 2010, the luxury world watched in stunned silence as Arnault launched his most audacious raid yet. He did not knock on the front door. He crept in through the back, using a complex and brilliantly stealthy financial instrument known as equity swaps. In simple terms, LVMH made secret agreements with investment banks. They paid the banks a fee, and the banks, acting on their behalf, went out and bought up huge blocks of Hermès stock. This allowed Arnault to build a massive stake, eventually reaching 17% of the company, without ever having to publicly declare his intentions. It was a financial stealth bomber, invisible until the moment it struck. The Hermès family was completely blindsided. They awoke one morning to discover that a rival they had long considered a friend now owned a large piece of their birthright, all acquired in the shadows. The betrayal was profound. This was not a courtship. It was an ambush. The family's response was one of pure, unadulterated defiance. They would not be swallowed. They rallied over 50 family members, representing more than 50% of the company's shares, and they created a fortress. They formed a secret holding company, a locked box where they pooled their shares together for a period of 20 years. This move was a masterstroke. It made it mathematically impossible for LVMH to ever gain a controlling interest. The shares in this family trust were untouchable, a wall of inherited legacy that no amount of money could breach. The battle then moved from the stock exchange to the courtrooms. Hermès accused LVMH of insider trading and market manipulation, arguing that the secret share buildup was a blatant violation of French financial laws. The legal war raged for years, a bitter and deeply personal conflict that tore at the fabric of the Parisian elite. In the end, even Arnault had to concede that the family's wall was unbreakable. A settlement was finally reached in 2013. LVMH was forced to distribute most of its Hermès shares to its own shareholders and pay a fine of 8 million euros, a mere slap on the wrist, but a massive symbolic defeat. The family had won. They had protected their house, but the war left a permanent scar. It proved that in this new era, no brand, no matter how sacred, was safe from the ambitions of a conglomerate. It forced every independent family to ask themselves a terrifying question. If the House of Hermès had to fight a 5-year legal war to protect its soul, what chance did anyone else have? While the European titans were locked in their epic struggles over Gucci and Hermès, a different kind of luxury war was being waged across the Atlantic. The American approach was not about centuries of heritage. It was born from the shopping mall and the outlet store, built on the idea of accessible luxury. Brands like Coach and Michael Kors perfected the art of selling aspiration to the masses. But they soon realized that to survive against giants like LVMH, they needed to become giants themselves. Their strategy was to build their own constellations of brands, creating American conglomerates with the power to compete on a global stage. Coach, a company famous for its durable handbags, made a bold transformation. It shed its old skin and reemerged as a new entity called Tapestry. The name was a perfect metaphor for its ambition, to weave together a collection of distinct American lifestyle brands into a single, powerful fabric. Its first major acquisition was the bright, playful Kate Spade. This was a brilliant move. Where Coach represented classic, pragmatic style, Kate Spade embodied youthful optimism and feminine charm. The purchase allowed Tapestry to capture an entirely new generation of customers without alienating its own. They were not just buying a company, they were buying a mood. The next thread in their tapestry was Stuart Weitzman, adding a dose of sleek, high-fashion footwear to the portfolio. This was the American blueprint in action, assembling a group of brands that covered different corners of a woman's wardrobe and life, all under one corporate roof. Not to be outdone, their arch-rival Michael Kors executed the same playbook with even more dramatic flair. The company, which built an empire on jet-set glamour and accessible luxury, rebranded itself as Capri Holdings, a name evoking a glamorous Mediterranean island far from its mall-based origins. Their ambitions, however, were intensely global. In a stunning power play, Capri made an offer that shook the fashion world, acquiring the iconic Italian house of Versace for over $2 billion. This was not just an acquisition, it was a declaration. An American company, known for practical luxury, was now the steward of one of Italy's most flamboyant and legendary fashion dynasties. The goal was clear: to use Versace's high-wattage glamour to elevate the entire Capri portfolio. They followed this by acquiring the legendary British trench coat maker Burberry, though that deal ultimately fell through, and instead solidified their position with the purchase of the iconic Jimmy Choo brand. The message was undeniable. The Americans were no longer just playing defense in their own backyard. They were storming the European citadels and planting their own flags. This created a new three-way Cold War. The European conglomerates with their deep heritage, the American assemblers with their sharp commercial instincts, and the few remaining independent family houses caught in the middle. The battlefield was no longer just Paris and Milan, but New York and London too. Every brand, from a quirky handbag label to a century-old tailoring house, was now a potential pawn or prize in this global game of thrones. With these new empires fully formed, the hunt for the next great brand intensified, pushing the corporate raiders toward the final frontier of luxury itself. Yet another empire was being built, not with the roar of a takeover battle, but with the quiet click of a jewelry box. While LVMH and Kering fought over fashion houses, a third contender mastered a different domain entirely: the kingdom of high jewelry, A-N-D, Chinese letter, W-A-T-C-H-M-A-K-I-N-G. This is the story of Richemont, the stealth giant of luxury, owned by the reclusive Rupert family from South Africa. Their origins are a world away from the Parisian elite. The patriarch, Anton Rupert, built his fortune on tobacco and mining, but he possessed a visionary understanding of brand value. He saw that timeless objects of desire, like a Cartier watch or a Van Cleef and Arpels diamond bracelet, held a different kind of power than a seasonal handbag. They were not just purchases, they were heirlooms. Under his son Johann, Richemont refined this vision into a formidable strategy, one of extreme discretion and intense focus. They were not interested in building a portfolio of every kind of luxury. They wanted to own the very pinnacle of craftsmanship in two specific arenas: jewelry and watches. Their crown jewel, the anchor of their entire empire, was the legendary house of Cartier. Acquiring Cartier was a masterstroke that gave Richemont an unassailable position. It was not just a brand, it was a synonym for opulence, with a clientele that included royalty and movie stars for over a century. But they did not stop there. They went on to acquire other legendary jewelers like Van Cleef and Arpels, with its iconic Alhambra motifs, and Buccellati, renowned for its exquisite silver and gold work. In the world of watches, they assembled a breathtaking collection of the most prestigious names in Swiss watchmaking. Think of Piguet, known for its ultra-thin movements, Jaeger-LeCoultre, the watchmaker's watchmaker, and Ilk, famous for its engineering precision. Richemont's approach to these acquisitions was fundamentally different from its rivals. Where LVMH might integrate a brand fully into its operational machine, Richemont often acted more as a guardian or a patron. They understood that the value of a watch that takes a year to make by hand, or a necklace worth millions, lies in its perceived rarity and its untouched heritage. They provided the financial backbone and global distribution, but they were famously hands-off with the creative and artisanal souls of these houses. This cultivated an aura of exclusivity that was their greatest weapon. They navigated the corporate wars not by engaging in public bidding battles, but by fortifying their own unassailable territory. While others fought over ready-to-wear, Richemont quietly controlled the most lucrative and emotionally resonant sector of all, the world of eternal objects that are passed down through generations. So, with Europe carved up by three rival empires and the Americans building their own constellations. Where could the next great battle possibly be fought? The final frontier for luxury's war was not a brand, but an entire continent, and a new generation of consumers who would change the rules of the game forever. This new battlefield is not just fought in boardrooms. It is waged in the spotlight, on red carpets and social media feeds, where a new kind of soldier has emerged, the modern Gilded Age heiress. Think of Paris Hilton, whose name became a global brand in its own right, or her sister Nikki Hilton Rothschild, who seamlessly bridges the worlds of old money socialite and fashion influencer. Their inherited social capital is a potent weapon in the luxury wars, a direct echo of their 19th century counterparts. Those original Gilded Age heiresses, women like Consuelo Vanderbilt, were not merely daughters of fortune. They were strategic assets, traded in marriages to secure titles for American industrial wealth and prestige for fading European aristocracies. Their lives were the currency in a transaction meant to consolidate power and legacy. Today's heiresses perform a strikingly similar role, but the transaction is not for a title, it is for brand relevance. When a conglomerate like LVMH or Kering aligns with a figure like Nikki Hilton Rothschild, they are not just hiring a famous face. They are acquiring her narrative, her aura of established, effortless privilege. Her presence at a fashion show or her social media post carrying a specific handbag does more than any traditional advertisement could. It whispers a story of heritage and access, validating the brand's place in the highest echelons of society. This is the modern equivalent of that old exchange, a fusion of bloodline and brand name designed to captivate a new generation. The heiress becomes a living, breathing ambassador for the corporate empire that now owns the legacy she represents. But this relationship is a double-edged sword. Just as those historical marriages often came at a great personal cost, the modern heiress must carefully navigate her role. Is she a savvy businesswoman leveraging her inheritance, or is she a pawn, her personal brand ultimately serving the financial ambitions of a faceless conglomerate? Her inherited status grants her a platform, but it also ties her fate to the very corporate wars that decide which family legacies survive and which are absorbed forever. The Hermès siege sent a shockwave through every remaining independent house, forcing them to confront a brutal new reality. If even the most fortified dynasty could be ambushed, no one was truly safe. In the heart of Paris, one name watched this corporate warfare with particular alarm: Chanel. For over a century, Chanel had cultivated an image of untouchable elegance, a private company shrouded in the mystique of its founder, Coco Chanel. But the era of quiet exclusivity was over. To survive, Chanel would have to break its own most sacred rule and open its books to the world. This was not a business strategy. It was a declaration of war against the very idea of a takeover. In 2018, Chanel did the unthinkable. For the first time in its 108-year history, it publicly released its full financial statements. The numbers were staggering, revealing annual revenues of nearly $10 billion. This was not an act of bragging. It was a calculated, defensive maneuver, a corporate scorched earth policy. By proving to the world, and specifically to predators like LVMH, that it was not just profitable, but phenomenally so, Chanel was sending a clear message. We are not a weak, fragmented target. We are a self-sufficient superpower. We do not need your machine because we have built our own. This financial transparency was a shield designed to make any potential acquirer realize the fight would be impossibly costly, and the prize was already fiercely independent. But the strategy went far beyond a single press release. Chanel began a global corporate restructuring, placing its vast array of subsidiaries under a single, streamlined UK holding company. This legal fortress made the entire organization more agile and, crucially, much harder to dismantle in a hostile bid. They were bolting the doors and reinforcing the walls in plain sight. They invested billions in buying their own suppliers, from legendary embroiderer Lesage to the feather artisan Lemerrier. This vertical integration meant Chanel controlled its entire creative universe, from the initial sketch to the final, exquisite button. A conglomerate could not simply buy the brand and plug it into a supply chain, because Chanel owned the chain itself. This was the ultimate expression of independence, a brand so determined to control its own destiny that it bought the very ground it stood on. The message to the corporate raiders was unmistakable. If you come for us, you will not find a tidy asset to add to your collection. You will find a fully armed citadel prepared for a long and bitter siege. Chanel's defiance raises a profound question for every luxury consumer. When you buy a classic flap bag or a bottle of No. 5, are you buying into a corporate portfolio, or are you investing in the last great stand of a solitary empire? Yet this struggle for independence often plays out most dramatically within the very families who founded these legendary houses. While the French and American giants fight corporate wars, the battles for Italian luxury are frequently civil wars, fought not in boardrooms but over Sunday dinners, pitting cousin against cousin in a heartbreaking clash over money and legacy. The story of Missoni is a perfect, painful example. For decades, the brand was the epitome of a bohemian, family-run dream. Its iconic zigzag knits a symbol of collective creativity. But that dream unraveled as the generations expanded. The founding trio, Ottavio and Resita and their children, saw their own descendants branch out into a sprawling family tree with competing visions and financial needs. The very thing that gave the brand its soul, its intimate family connection, became its greatest vulnerability. Without a clear succession plan or a single unifying leader, the company became paralyzed by indecision. Siblings and cousins disagreed on everything from creative direction to the fundamental question of whether to sell the business to secure their inheritances. This internal fragmentation made them a perfect target. An Italian investment fund, the FSI, saw an opportunity and gradually acquired a 41% stake, effectively gaining control without a dramatic hostile raid. The family, divided, could not mount a unified defense. The takeover was quiet, almost polite, but its result was the same. The Missoni family slowly lost its grip on the company that bore its name. A similar fate unfolded at Valentino, a house synonymous with glamorous red carpet romance. For years, it was controlled by another Italian family dynasty, the Marzatos, who had acquired it and nurtured it into a global powerhouse. But even their control was not absolute. The real power shift occurred when Mayhoola, a Qatari investment fund with bottomless resources and immense patience, began quietly acquiring shares. This was not a hostile siege like the Hermès affair. It was a strategic, long-term courtship of a fragmented ownership group. The Marzotto family, like many large clans, had shareholders with different appetites for risk and reward. Mayhoola offered a compelling exit, a lavish price that allowed some family members to cash out their legacy while promising to invest heavily in the brand's future. They steadily increased their stake until they owned the entire company, a complete and peaceful transition of power from an old Italian family to a new Gulf state sovereign fund. This is the Italian front in the luxury wars, a landscape where the most dangerous predator is often not a corporate raider, but the slow, creeping pressure of inheritance taxes, sibling rivalries, and the simple human desire for financial security. It raises a haunting question. Is it better for a family brand to be conquered by a distant conglomerate that might preserve its name, or to be slowly dismantled from within by the very people who were meant to protect it? These corporate wars created a new class of mercenary, armed not with creative vision, but with pure financial firepower. Private equity firms and sovereign wealth funds now operate as the ultimate wild cards in the battle for luxury, playing the role of vulture, white knight, or silent partner, depending on the deal. Their motives are starkly different from the conglomerates. Where LVMH or Kering seek to own a brand forever as part of a strategic portfolio, these funds are often looking for a turnaround story they can sell for a massive profit in just a few years. They are the ultimate flippers of heritage. The Carlyle Group is a prime example of this vulture strategy. They specialize in identifying undervalued or troubled brands, injecting capital and operational expertise to streamline them, and then selling them off at a premium. Their acquisition of the Italian brand Moncler is a textbook case. When Carlyle invested, Moncler was a respected but niche maker of high-end ski wear. The fund saw the potential to transform it into a global luxury powerhouse centered on the humble puffer jacket. They professionalized its operations, supercharged its marketing, and orchestrated a hugely successful public stock listing. A few years later, they exited their investment, reaping a profit of over $1 billion. They did not want to own the story of Moncler. They simply wanted to write its most profitable chapter and then move on. In stark contrast, some funds position themselves as white knights, offering a safe harbor for families desperate to avoid being swallowed by a rival conglomerate. This is the role played by Mayhoola, the Qatari investment fund, with seemingly infinite patience and resources. When the Valentino founders were looking for an exit, Mayhoola did not offer a quick flip. They offered a long-term vision and a promise to preserve the brand's Italian soul, making them a far more attractive partner than a corporate giant like LVMH. They provided the capital for global expansion without the pressure of immediate quarterly profits, allowing the creative team the breathing room to dream. But this white knight narrative has a darker edge. A fund's protection is rarely permanent. They are ultimately answerable to their own investors, and their patience can run out. A brand saved from one predator can find itself years later being prepared for a lucrative sale to another. Its fate merely postponed, not permanently secured. This dual nature makes these funds the most unpredictable players in the game. They can be the saviors that allow a family to cash out with dignity, or the vultures that circle a struggling house, waiting for the perfect moment to strip it for parts. Their rise forces every family to ask a difficult new question. When you need a partner to survive, how can you tell the difference between a guardian and a grave digger? But this corporate triumph came at a hidden cost. The very creative genius that resurrected Gucci, Tom Ford, found himself increasingly at odds with the new corporate overseers. The friction was not about money, it was about control. Ford and the chief executive, Domenico de Sole, had been handed absolute creative freedom to save a sinking ship. But once the ship was not just saved, but became the most glamorous vessel in the fleet, the parent company, PPR, now Kering, began to want a say in its course. The corporate machine, designed for efficiency and scalability, started to question the very excess that had defined the brand's success. The intense, provocative, and incredibly expensive vision that Ford poured into every runway show and advertisement began to be seen as a liability, a risk to predictable quarterly growth. The relationship, once a celebrated partnership, soured into a slow, quiet war of attrition. In 2004, the unthinkable happened. Tom Ford and Domenico de Sole, the duo who had conjured Gucci's billion-dollar magic, walked away. Their departure was not a retirement, it was a rupture. It sent a shock wave through the industry, a stark reminder that a corporate savior could also become a creative jailer. The brand lost its visionary compass overnight. For years after, Gucci drifted, trying on different creative directors like outfits that never quite fit, a ghost ship haunted by the specter of its own former glory. This is the creative casualty of the luxury wars, the moment when the relentless logic of the spreadsheet strangles the artistic soul it paid so much to acquire. When the balance tips too far toward corporate oversight, the magic doesn't just fade, it packs its bags and leaves. So we must ask, in this high-stakes game of buying and selling legends, what is the true price of a brand's soul, and who ultimately gets to write the final chapter? Yet for every creative casualty, there is a phoenix rising from the ashes. The same corporate machine that can stifle a visionary can also perform a miraculous rescue, breathing life into a heritage brand left for dead. The story of Bottega Veneta is the ultimate proof. Before its acquisition by Kering, Bottega was a sleeping giant, a revered Italian leather goods house known for its discreet, artisanal quality. But its quiet elegance had been mistaken for dullness. Its signature intrecciato weave a relic in an era of loud logos. The brand was fading into irrelevance, a ghost in its own atelier. Kering's intervention was not a hostile grab. It was a strategic diagnosis. They identified the brand's core strength, its unparalleled craftsmanship, and made a daring bet on a little-known German designer named Daniel Lee. His appointment was a masterstroke. Lee understood the Bottega code, but he rewrote it for a new generation. He took the iconic weave and exploded its scale, creating voluptuous, sculptural handbags that were instantly recognizable yet utterly fresh. He introduced a bold, electric green that became synonymous with a new kind of cool, understated luxury. Under Kering's ownership, Bottega Veneta was given the resources and the global platform to amplify this new vision. The conglomerate's marketing muscle and retail expertise launched the reborn brand into the stratosphere. Almost overnight, those padded leather bags and square-toed mules became the most coveted items on the planet, worn by every influential tastemaker from Seoul to Los Angeles. The brand's revenue skyrocketed, transforming it from a respected footnote into one of Kering's most valuable assets. This was a turnaround that demonstrated the conglomerate model at its very best, a perfect alignment of corporate power and creative genius that saved a legacy from obscurity. But this success story stands in stark contrast to a much more turbulent revival. The House of Lanvin, the oldest continuously operating French fashion house, has become a cautionary tale of revival attempts gone wrong. After the departure of its beloved designer Albert Elbaz, the brand cycled through a series of creative directors and owners, each with a different vision. A Chinese conglomerate took control, promising a return to glory, but instead presided over a period of chaotic management, plummeting sales, and a complete loss of brand identity. The rescue of such a wounded house requires more than just money. It demands a coherent, long-term strategy and a deep respect for the brand's soul, something that has proven elusive for Lanvin. The dramatic difference between these two stories forces a difficult question. When a corporate empire acquires a fading legend, what invisible alchemy must occur to ensure it becomes the next Bottega Veneta and not the next Lanvin? A new axis of power is quietly rewriting the rules of the luxury game. For decades, the battlefield was dominated by European and American empires, but the 21st century has ushered in a formidable new contender: Chinese conglomerates. These are not mere corporations. They are instruments of national ambition, and their strategy extends far beyond profit margins. At the forefront is Fosun International, a sprawling conglomerate with interests in healthcare, insurance, and tourism. When Fosun acquires a luxury brand, it is not just buying a name. It is acquiring a key to the world's most important consumer market. The motivations are deeply strategic, a fusion of geopolitics and commerce. China's burgeoning middle class, hundreds of millions strong, represents the single greatest growth opportunity for luxury goods. By owning the brands themselves, Chinese conglomerates can control their distribution, marketing, and narrative within China, ensuring they resonate with local tastes and cultural values. This is not just about selling handbags. It is about capturing the imagination and the wallets of an entire generation. Fosun's acquisition of the storied but struggling French house Lanvin was a clear statement of intent. They were not just purchasing a fashion label. They were investing in a piece of French heritage, believing they possessed the unique insight and distribution channels to revive it for a Chinese audience. Similarly, their purchase of the Austrian hosiery specialist Wolford was a move to control a niche but prestigious segment of intimate apparel, another area of explosive growth in Asia. These acquisitions are carefully calculated to build a portfolio that appeals directly to the aspirations of the new Chinese consumer. The long-term goal is audacious: to build a Chinese-owned luxury conglomerate that can stand shoulder to shoulder with LVMH and Kering. This is a patient, decades-long strategy, one that leverages market access as its ultimate weapon. The question for every other player is no longer just who has the deepest pockets, but who holds the keys to the kingdom of tomorrow's consumers. The battle for luxury has moved from the atelier to the algorithm. The conglomerates realized that acquiring heritage brands was only half the war. The other half was controlling the digital world where those brands are now discovered and desired. This new front is not fought over leather and silk. but over data streams and virtual storefronts. The most ambitious attempt to conquer this new territory was the saga of Farfetch. It began as a brilliant disruptor, a digital platform that promised to connect thousands of luxury boutiques with a global audience, offering an endless aisle of rare finds. For the luxury giants, it was both a threat and an opportunity. Its technology and reach were undeniable, but its model challenged their tight control over distribution and pricing. The race to either acquire or neutralize it became a strategic imperative. The victor, it seemed, was a surprise contender. In a dramatic rescue mission, the South Korean e-commerce behemoth Coupang acquired Farfetch, saving it from the brink of collapse. This was a stunning turn of events, a clear signal that the gatekeepers of luxury's digital future would not necessarily be the traditional European houses, but global tech powerhouses with their own vast armies of online shoppers. But the strategy goes far beyond just buying e-commerce sites. The real arms race is for the technologies that will define the next generation of shopping. LVMH, Kering, and Richemont are now in a frantic competition to acquire or partner with startups specializing in augmented reality try-ons. Imagine pointing your phone at your living room and seeing a virtual handbag sitting on your coffee table, or virtually trying on a pair of sunglasses without ever leaving your home. This is no longer science fiction. It is a critical battlefield for customer engagement. Similarly, blockchain authentication has become a new holy grail. With the market for counterfeit goods thriving online, the conglomerates are investing heavily in startups that can embed a unique, unbreakable digital certificate of authenticity into every product they sell. This digital twin, recorded on a blockchain, would travel with the item forever, proving its provenance from the factory to its fifth owner. This protects the brand's integrity and transforms a secondhand purchase from a risk into a guaranteed investment. The ultimate goal is to build a seamless, digitally fortified universe around every product, from the moment it is virtually imagined to the moment it is authenticated for resale. So as these empires stockpile not just brands, but the very code that powers modern desire, we are left to wonder, in a world where your next luxury purchase might exist in a virtual showroom before it is ever physically stitched, who truly owns the future of allure? A scandal can be the perfect storm that leaves a legendary house defenseless. When a brand's carefully crafted image is shattered by controversy, its financial foundations crack, and the corporate raiders begin to circle. The most dramatic example unfolded at the very heart of the LVMH empire, with the house of Christian Dior. For years, the flamboyant designer John Galliano had been the creative soul of Dior. His theatrical runway shows a source of endless buzz and desire. But in 2011, a cell phone video surfaced, capturing Galliano in a Paris cafe, delivering a vile, anti-Semitic rant. The backlash was instantaneous and merciless. The entire fashion world recoiled in horror. Dior had no choice but to fire its star designer immediately, citing a policy of zero tolerance, but the damage was already done. The brand was now associated not with glamour, but with bigotry. Its reputation, its most valuable asset, was suddenly toxic. In that moment of profound vulnerability, the corporate parent becomes both judge and executioner. LVMH moved swiftly to contain the crisis, publicly condemning Galliano's actions and distancing the Dior brand from the scandal. But this was also a moment of immense control. The conglomerate's vast resources and infrastructure allowed it to absorb the shock, to install a new designer, and to slowly, painstakingly, rehabilitate the brand's image over time. A smaller, independent house might have been crushed by such a cataclysm, its name forever tarnished. For a giant like LVMH, it was a severe but manageable wound, a stark demonstration of why being part of a conglomerate can be a shield against self-inflicted disaster. Yet sometimes the scandal is not a public outburst, but a silent internal rot. Accounting fraud or financial mismanagement can hollow out a family-run business from the inside, leaving a beautiful facade with nothing left to defend it. Imagine a small heritage leather goods company, beloved for its craftsmanship. The founding family, perhaps struggling to keep up with modern retail demands, might start to creatively account for its debts or inflate its inventory value to secure loans. When that deception is inevitably uncovered, the result is a catastrophic loss of trust. Banks call in their loans, suppliers demand payment upfront, and the company's valuation plummets overnight. It is at this precise moment, when the family is drowning in disgrace and debt, that a white knight or a vulture fund appears. They offer a lifeline, a cash infusion to pay off the creditors and salvage the brand's name. But that rescue comes at the ultimate price, the surrender of control. The family loses its legacy not in a dramatic battle, but in a quiet, shame-filled settlement. These scandals, whether public or private, create the ideal conditions for a takeover. They reveal the hidden fractures in a brand's armor, proving that no amount of heritage can survive a crisis of character or a failure of integrity. When the glittering surface is scratched, what is left for a conglomerate to acquire but a name, and the daunting task of rebuilding a soul from the ground up? Sometimes the most dramatic takeovers are not corporate strategies at all, but the ultimate expressions of a single individual's desire. When a billionaire decides to acquire a legendary brand, it can become the world's most expensive hobby, a passion project fueled by personal obsession rather than a spreadsheet. The diamond magnate Lawrence Graff did not simply buy jewelry houses. He collected them, seeking to own every facet of the diamond's journey from mine to masterpiece. His acquisition of the historic London jeweler Mappin and Webb and the prestigious Swiss watchmaker Quorum were not just investments. They were the fulfillment of a lifelong dream to command an entire universe of luxury. For Graff, owning these houses was the final, triumphant step in a personal saga that began when he was a young apprentice. He was not just purchasing assets, he was curating his own legacy. Another iconic example was Mohammed Al Faid's long ownership of Harrods, the legendary London department store. For him, Harrods was not a retail outlet. It was a stage for his own theatrical vision of opulence. He poured hundreds of millions into its restoration, adding the breathtaking Egyptian hall and the memorials to his son, Dodi, and Princess Diana. Under his command, the store became an extension of his own flamboyant personality, a personal kingdom where his word was law. These acquisitions represent a different kind of luxury war, one fought not between corporations, but within the heart of a collector. The prize is not market share, but immortality. When a billionaire buys a heritage brand, They are purchasing a piece of history they can touch, shape, and stamp with their own name. They become the new protagonist in that brand's century-old story. But this raises a deeply personal question for the rest of us. When a brand becomes one man's ultimate trophy, does its soul become nothing more than a reflection of its owner's ego? Or is this the purest form of preservation, where love, not just profit, guides its future? These complex legal weapons are the hidden fortifications in the corporate castle walls. A poison pill, for instance, is not a physical toxin, but a financial defense mechanism designed to make a company so unattractive to swallow that any predator will choke on it. We saw this in the Gucci war, where the company flooded the market with new shares for its employees, instantly diluting LVMH's hard-won stake. It was a desperate, brilliant move that turned the entire company into a less valuable prize overnight. Then there is the golden share, a single, special share that holds veto power over any major decision, especially a takeover. This is often held by a founding family or a government to protect a company deemed a national treasure. Imagine a boardroom where 99 people vote to sell, but that one golden share can slam the door shut. Super voting stock is another powerful tool for families. It grants certain shareholders, typically the founders and their descendants, votes that are worth 10 or even 20 times more than our regular share. This means a family can own only 20% of the company's economic value, but through their super voting shares, they retain 51% of the voting power, ensuring they control the destiny of their legacy no matter who buys up the common stock. The Hermès family executed a masterful version of this without a formal share structure. By pooling over 50% of their shares into an untouchable 20-year holding company, they created a human wall against LVMH's advance. This was a golden share strategy enacted by a unified family, a legal fortress built not with a single document, but with a shared vow to protect their name. The courtroom then becomes the final battlefield. When LVMH secretly built its stake in Hermès using equity swaps, Hermès did not just build a wall, they launched a legal counterattack, accusing Arnault of insider trading and market manipulation. The ensuing court battles were not just about fines. They were about establishing a precedent, a legal line in the sand that said even the most powerful conglomerate must play by the rules of disclosure. These legal arsenals transform a simple financial transaction into a high-stakes duel of wits and wills. They prove that in the luxury wars, the most important battles are often fought not with cash, but with contracts, and the ultimate prize is not just ownership, but the legal right to a legacy. So when you see a brand that has remained independent for generations, what invisible legal armor do you think is protecting it from the siege engines of modern finance? A brand's stock price is its heartbeat, and every fluctuation is a signal to the waiting predators. When that pulse weakens, the dreams of acquisition begin to stir. The financial mechanics of this dance are brutally simple. A publicly traded luxury house, like Tod's or Burberry, has its value measured by the minute, its fate decided by the collective mood of the global market. A strong share price is a fortress wall, making a takeover prohibitively expensive, but a sustained dip, perhaps caused by a few disappointing quarters or a shift in consumer trends, transforms that fortress into a bargain. The company's fundamental value, its heritage stores and global recognition remains intact, but its market price no longer reflects it. This gap between price and perceived value is the corporate raider's sweet spot. Imagine Todd's, the revered Italian shoemaker, watching its stock slide as younger consumers initially drift toward flashier sneakers. The founding Della Valle family still controls the company, but that declining share price is a flashing neon sign for a conglomerate like LVMH. They can swoop in and quietly buy up a significant stake at a discounted price, amassing influence without the drama of a hostile public bid. This is the stock market tango, a delicate interplay between perceived weakness and opportunistic strength. A single earnings report can be the first step in a courtship or a declaration of war. For the families trying to maintain control, every stock tick is a reminder that their legacy is now a commodity, its price tag changing with the wind. So the next time you see a luxury brand's shares tumble, ask yourself, who is watching that chart most closely, and what are they already planning to do about it? Yet for every triumphant rescue like Bottega Veneta, there exists a shadowy counterpart, a brand graveyard where legends go to die. These are the cautionary tales of takeovers that went horribly wrong, where the corporate scalpel intended for a strategic revival instead severed the brand's very soul. No story captures this tragedy more vividly than the fall of Halston. In the 1970s, Halston was not just a designer. He was an American emperor of ease and elegance. His name was synonymous with a new kind of glamour, worn by Bianca Jagger and Liza Minnelli. His minimalist designs defining the era's decadent nightlife. He built an empire on everything from perfume to airline uniforms, but his greatest strength, his singular creative vision, would become his fatal weakness. The first corporate suitor, Norton Simon Incorporated, saw the potential to mass produce his magic. They acquired the company and immediately began licensing the Halston name to a dizzying array of products, from carpets to cigarettes. This was not a partnership, it was a dilution. The more the name appeared on cheap, accessible goods, the less it meant on the runway. The exquisite cachet that was the brand's lifeblood was slowly poisoned. The final devastating blow came with a disastrous licensing deal with J.C. Penney. While a visionary move in theory, bringing high design to the masses, in practice, it was a death sentence. The elite clientele who had paid thousands for a custom Halston gown felt betrayed, their exclusive clubs suddenly thrown open to everyone. The aura of luxury evaporated overnight. Halston himself, stripped of creative control, became a prisoner in his own house. He was eventually fired from the company that bore his name, a ghost watching his legacy be dismantled piece by piece. Over the following decades, a parade of subsequent owners, from Revlon to a series of investment firms, tried to resurrect the corpse. Each new strategy further confused the brand's identity, until the name Halston no longer stood for effortless chic, but for corporate confusion in a glory long past. The label became a ghost, its spirit broken by too many masters who understood spreadsheets, but never understood the singular, fragile genius they had purchased. Halston's fate forces a haunting reflection. When a brand is treated not as a living story, but as a mere asset to be leveraged, how long can its soul survive before it becomes just a name on a label, echoing in a graveyard of forgotten glamour? The chessboard of luxury is never still, and the next moves are already being calculated in corporate war rooms. The question is no longer if another independent house will fall, but which one. The most likely targets share a common profile, a powerful, globally recognized name with a deep heritage, yet a business model that is still small enough to be digestible for a giant. Brunello Cucinelli stands as a prime example, a brand practically tailor-made for acquisition. Its philosophy of humanistic capitalism and sublime cashmere craftsmanship represents the pinnacle of quiet, understated luxury, a sector the conglomerates are desperate to dominate. More importantly, Cucinelli has cultivated a fiercely loyal clientele willing to pay extraordinary prices for its philosophy as much as its products. For a group like LVMH or Rickymont, acquiring Cucinelli would be like capturing a rare, perfectly formed pearl, an entire world of refined elegance they could instantly scale across the globe. The brand's soul is its value, and that is precisely what the conglomerates know how to monetize. Then there is Ermenegildo Zegna, a titan of Italian tailoring that has already taken steps to protect itself by going public. This move provides a war chest for growth, but it also makes its stock performance a constant beacon for potential suitors. Zegna's recent acquisition of the Thom Browne brand shows its own ambition to build a mini conglomerate. But for a true giant, the entire Zegna empire, with its control over luxury fabrics and a global retail network, could be the ultimate strategic prize, a way to dominate the entire male luxury wardrobe from suiting to sneakers. And what of Moncler? Its transformation from a ski wear specialist to a global phenomenon centered on the puffer coat is one of luxury's greatest success stories. Yet its very focus could be its vulnerability. The brand's destiny is tied to a single, iconic product category. For a conglomerate, this presents a tantalizing opportunity to acquire a wildly profitable brand and then use its vast resources to expand its universe into leather goods, footwear, and jewelry, unlocking growth that Moncler could never achieve alone. The factors that make these houses attractive are a deadly combination, a timeless narrative, a definable aesthetic, and a financial ceiling that a conglomerate believes it can shatter. The final irresistible lure is succession. Many of these brands are still led by their founding visionaries. When those founders eventually step aside, the question of legacy becomes a moment of maximum peril, a vulnerable window when a corporate offer of eternal life for the brand can seem far more compelling than the risk of a family feud or a slow decline. So we are left to wonder, which of these brilliant independent flames will be the next to be absorbed into a constellation? And will the world be a richer or a poorer place for it? These corporate wars are not distant financial dramas. They are the invisible forces that shape the price tag on your next handbag. When a conglomerate acquires a beloved family brand, the first thing you often notice is a subtle but certain shift in price. That iconic tote may suddenly cost hundreds more. This is not arbitrary inflation. It is a direct result of the acquisition debt. The billions spent to buy the brand must be recouped, and the most straightforward path is through strategic price increases, repositioning the label to an even more exclusive tier of the market. Yet, paradoxically, you might also see the brand appear in more airport boutiques and online stores than ever before. This is the accessibility paradox. The conglomerate's global distribution machine swings into action, making the product easier to find for a global audience, while simultaneously making it less affordable for the individual. The brand is pulled in two directions: its aura of exclusivity carefully managed against the relentless drive for growth. The very quality in your hands tells another part of the story. For some brands, acquisition means salvation. A cash infusion can rescue dying artisanal workshops, allowing for the preservation of techniques that were on the verge of extinction. The legendary embroidery house that once served a small atelier might be bought and secured by its new corporate owner, ensuring those skills survive for another generation. But for other houses, the corporate mandate for efficiency and scalability can lead to a quiet, creeping compromise. The number of stitches per inch on a leather trim might be reduced to save precious minutes in production. A metal clasp once cast and polished by hand could be replaced by a lighter, machine-made component. These are not changes you would see in an advertisement, but you might feel them in the weight of the bag, or sense them in the way the zipper glides less smoothly over time. The soul of the object, that intangible feeling of something made with obsessive care, can be the hardest thing to preserve when quarterly earnings reports loom. Then there is the question of creativity itself. When you buy a new collection from a designer brand, you are buying into a creative vision. Under the conglomerate model, that vision is often steered by data and market research. A runaway hit, like a particular shoe style, will inevitably lead to a dozen variations, saturating the market until the very thing that made it special becomes commonplace. The creative director's most daring, unconventional ideas might be quietly shelved in favor of safer, more commercially proven designs. The brand begins to speak in a corporate dialect, its unique voice softened to fit a portfolio-wide strategy. This is the great trade-off. You gain global availability and often a more polished and consistent product, but you can lose the thrilling, unpredictable spark of artistic risk, the very thing that made you fall in love with the brand in the first place. Ultimately, every luxury purchase is now a vote in this silent war. When you choose a bag from a fiercely independent house, you are investing in a specific kind of dream, one of family legacy and often artistic autonomy. When you choose one from a conglomerate-owned brand, you are buying into a different kind of power, one of global reach and industrial precision. The price you pay, the quality you feel, and the story you help tell are all shaped by the invisible battlefield where empires are won and lost. So the next time you admire that beautifully crafted object of desire, ask yourself, what world are you actually holding in your hands? From the ashes of these battles, a new world order has emerged, defined by the epic rivalry between Bernard Arnault and François-Henri Pinault, the defiant walls built by families like Hermès, and the rising influence of American and Chinese empires. This endless war over desire has reshaped everything we buy and cherish. We have witnessed the brilliant rescues and the creative casualties, the legal fortresses and the stealthy financial raids. Yet one haunting question remains at the heart of all this corporate maneuvering. Can the soul of a brand, that fragile, magical essence born from a single artisan's hand, truly survive the relentless pressure of quarterly earnings and global scale? The story of modern luxury is a tale of two conflicting truths. On one hand, corporate consolidation has saved countless heritage skills from extinction. giving master embroiderers and leather workers a global stage. On the other, it has smoothed away the wild, unpredictable edges of artistic genius, often replacing it with data-driven design. The luxury you hold today is a compromise, a beautiful object born from the tension between a family's dream and a conglomerate's machine. So we turn this final question over to you. In this vast and ever-shifting landscape of empires, which one legendary house do you believe must remain independent at all costs? Which name represents a flame of creativity too vital to be absorbed into any portfolio? Share your champion in the comments below. The next great defense could begin with your voice.